All right, for today's video, we're going to show you how to quickly ingest CSV files into SQL Server using Polars. Now, before we go too far, I do want to invite you to check out the free Jupyter Notebook that's associated with this video. You can go to Polars Code Academy and get this entire repository of all of our videos that we've done and kind of get those so that you can follow along for these different how-to videos. All right, now today's video is going to be a little bit different because we are actually going to be using UV to create a brand new Python environment for us. Now, this is really handy for when you need to quickly create an environment and add certain packages. Maybe you don't want to have a massive base interpreter, and so you want to install packages through a virtual environment. UV makes this very easy and very fast comparatively to kind of just using regular pip and everything like that. So we're going to walk through that entire process. And so we'll start with that. Now, what we are going to provide for you to actually follow along and do all this with us is this requirements text file. Now, we are going to mass install all of these packages so that you can, from the very start, run your Jupyter Notebooks and have everything work right away. And so we're going to first have to install that. Let's go ahead and head over to this command prompt here. Now, I am going to be using UV, which is a package that you can download through PyPy. I did do this previously by doing pip install UV. That's a prerequisite here. What we're going to do is start out by creating the virtual environment. So we're going to say UV, and then we're going to call venv. That's what we'll call our virtual environment. Actually, excuse me, that's not what we're going to call the virtual environment. That's the command that UV is going to use to create the virtual environment. So let's do that. Okay. So you see it gives us a activation path that you can use. So go ahead and just copy and paste that below. It did use, before we go any further, it did use Python 3.13. So yeah, we've got that as our base interpreter. We're going to go ahead and run this. And now we have our virtual environment. Okay. And once again, it defaulted to the name of the folder that it was currently in. So we've got that all figured out. Now what we need to do is actually install all of the requirements. Now, in order to do this, there is a command that you can run. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and paste this in, and while it's going to load really quick because UV is just super fast. Okay, so got all of our packages there. Let's go back up and take a look at what the command actually looked like. So we did UV pip install, and then we did -r and then requirements.txt. So it looked at this file, grabbed all of the packages that were in there, and then you can see it quickly loaded everything. It tells you how long it took to get all those packages installed, less than 2 seconds, which is pretty quick compared to kind of regular pip install and everything like that. So pretty cool. Okay, now that we have our environment created and our packages installed, we can now actually use that on our Jupyter Notebook. Now, to change to the environment, we're going to go ahead and click here. And we've got some other interpreters here that we could use, but we want to actually use our new one that we just created. You can see we've got this virtual environment one here, and we can go ahead and click that. And now we can actually move into downloading and getting the data into SQL Server. So let's go ahead and open that up. And we're doing this one a little bit differently today because I wanted to showcase a different side of maybe some more automation that you can do with Polars. This one involves using the request library. So in this case, we're actually just referencing our Polars Code Academy repo, and we're specifically selecting this file, this employees CSV file. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull that down to our computer, and so it'll save it on our computer, and then we can actually open it up in this next cell and work with it. So let's go ahead and start by doing this. Okay, so it took a little bit to get going there, but it ran pretty quickly. So we've got our file here, and you can see it just loaded it into our base folder that we're currently working in. So we've got that data now, and we can go ahead and run this command. So simple read CSV. We've done this a lot on this channel, so you're probably familiar with this. So we just read in that data, And so we have this employee data that we can now pass into SQL Server. Now, we're going to do that next. So let's go ahead and expand this. And let's talk through a few connection tips, because this is something that could be complicated if you're unfamiliar with doing this. So the main thing that we need to do here is create a connection string, right? So let's talk through that really quick. We're actually going to be using SQL Alchemy and PyODBC. And the other thing that I will mention here is we are going to actually be using pandas. Now, the reason we're using pandas is because Polars does not currently have a quick, fast function to push data into SQL Server. I'm hopeful that they will work on that and get that out. I've been actually hoping for that for a little while now, but it just hasn't quite happened. I don't know. They've got a lot going on. I get why they haven't gotten to it yet, but would be really cool to have. Anyway, quick digression there. We are using pandas, PyODBC, and SQL Alchemy to do this process. And so the main thing that we need to do here is to create a PyODBC string. And so that involves passing a server name, which we have here. That's just localhost for me since I'm doing it on my local computer. The database name, which goes here. And then a question mark. And then after the question mark is where you build out a few other items. So first thing is you need to have an ODBC driver on your computer. Now, if you don't have that, you will need to go ahead and download it here from Microsoft. So that's the other piece that you'll need here. And then you also, because I have kind of Windows authentication on my SQL Server, I'm using a trusted connection to make that possible. Alternatively, you could have like a username and password that goes here. This is part of the kind of the driver and that connection to SQL Server that makes that happen. So this is the uniform resource identifier, and that's our connection string. And then we are actually going to create an engine using SQL Alchemy, and we'll pass in our URI, and then we're going to do a fast execute many type of engine. So it'll execute the commands that we do really quickly, is what we're trying to do there. Okay, let's go ahead and run this. Okay, so it gives us this engine object as the output. Just looks basically the exact same as what it looks like up there. And then what we can do now is actually use the Polars write database function. Now again, this actually points it directly to pandas, so it actually passes your Polars data frame into a pandas data frame, and then it uses the pandas method of pushing data into SQL Server, which requires PyODBC. So that's why we kind of created this, and it's a little convoluted. I do hope that eventually we get a native write database function for SQL Server, but as of right now, this is kind of what we got. So, okay, the couple things that we're doing here is we need to define a table name. Now you can pass the schema and table name within this parameter here. It will create, if it doesn't have the schema, it will fail obviously, but you can actually pass in different schemas if you're using schemas for organizing and doing restricted security access on SQL Server. Now, you do need to pass the connection, which will be the engine that we created up here. And then this last part is really important as well. It's if the table actually exists on SQL Server. Now, it doesn't look like my helpers are working for some reason. I'm not sure what that's about, but if you were to hover over this, you could see helpers for what type of values can go here. Now, I believe the three are append, replace, and fail. I think the default is fail, which is why we've defined it here as replace. So pretty straightforward. This will basically just say, okay, we're going to take this table, and if it already exists, we're going to truncate all that data from the table and then replace it with what we've got. Anyway, a lot of talking there. Let's go ahead and run this, show you what happens here. Okay, so one note I will make, there were not that many records, right? So there was only 5 records in this table, and it took 3 seconds. That is pretty common because we are converting from pandas or from Polars to pandas and then pushing it into SQL Server. So a little bit of a performance issue there. That's part of the reason why I'm hoping for a native solution. And if anyone else has a better solution for this, please post it in the chat so that we can cover it on this channel and walk through maybe a faster way to insert these records into SQL Server. In any case, let's go ahead and make sure that this is on the SQL Server that we have. So let's go ahead and open this up here. So I actually already have it pulled up. I will refresh it here just to make sure that table got passed in. And you can see that the employees table is now here. And we're going to go ahead and open that up. Okay. And we've got all of the data that we were looking for. So this was just one way that you can manage ingestion into SQL Server. Programmatically using Python and Polars, it's really handy. There are some great things that you can do with automation here. If you have an SFTP that you can connect to, or if you're pulling in JSON data, whatever it is, you can get it in a tabular format within a Polars data frame and then push it directly into SQL Server. And the best part is you can schedule those scripts so that they can run automatically while you're sleeping and everything else like that. So really cool. Use this quite a bit in my personal job, and it's really been a game changer for consistency, automation, and everything like that. So that's all we have for this video. If you liked it, I'm going to invite you again to go check out our other videos that we have on the channel. We have a ton of great content on data analysis, data engineering, how we use Polars with that. And so go ahead and check out those other videos, and we'll catch up with you in the next one.